Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll give it a couple seconds to let folks filter on in. Hi, Laura. How are you? Lisa, thank you for being here. Hi, Werner. Awesome. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you all for joining us. This is 50 Strong SkillBridgeConnect, which is part of our efforts at 50 Strong to really support industry stakeholders toward a military-ready workforce ecosystem. A lot of what we do is kind of begun in one-to-one conversations that we have with many of our employer partners, some of which that you'll hear a little bit more detail about here. But our efforts are really around helping employers meet their business needs of hiring strong military and veteran talent. Today's event is down at the bottom right, one event that's part of our 50 Strong SkillBridgeConnect series. SkillBridge is such an awesome program, but we have seen employers have so many questions, and frankly, I've seen way too many employers churn unnecessarily. So this is really an effort amongst our partners to really just come together and share a little bit more about what we're seeing and hearing, best practices. The goal, of course, is to help more employers so that we can indirectly help service members get into really strong roles. So we really appreciate you being here. I will first just start a little bit about the SkillBridge program. For those of you that are here, you probably know that we have almost 200,000 service members that come out of the military every year. The SkillBridge program is a really strong opportunity for industry partners to have early access to the experience that these folks bring to the workforce. SkillBridge lets employers craft programs that are specifically aligned to their workforce needs. And the DoD continues to pay the salary and the benefits of the service member while they are training and learning in the civilian employer environment for up to the last 6 months of service. Before I introduce my guests, I want to make a really important point. This is an industry-led share session. I ask you to approach it in that vein. This is not sponsored by the Department of Defense or any of the services. Again, this is an industry-led share session. I've been tracking the number of DoD SkillBridge programs on the SkillBridge website for a couple of years now. And I'm sharing this slide with you so that you understand the phase that we are in of the program. The SkillBridge program is still what I'll call new-ish, and it's seen dramatic growth since 2019, since COVID. And so when we really think about what that means, we're in this phase of lots of new programs, lots of service members and commands hearing about the program. We really want to be a part of helping to share out best practices. Every single one of the employers that are here with us today have stood up their SkillBridge program since 2019. And so in the words of Mike Piper, who you'll meet in just a second, we learn every day. It's a new program for us, and it's a new program for you. And so all of my partners are coming together today to say, listen, we're learning. We're going to be as transparent as we can. We want to help other employers as they're navigating the space. With that, I would like to welcome my guests today. I'm going to turn off the screen share so that you guys can see everybody. And I would like if we can just do some introductions, guys, who you are, your role, how long you've been navigating SkillBridge. And then we're gonna basically open up this entire hour that we have together to hear from you things that you want folks to really understand about the program. I will start, if I can, Harris Morris from ADP. Harris, do you mind to say a quick hello?
Yeah, thanks, Candy. And thanks to everybody that's joining us today. I appreciate it. Yeah, my name's Harris Morris. I run the Veterans Initiative for ADP. We have worked with Candy and 50 Strong and signed with Department of Defense back in February. So we're still in early days, and I think that'll be probably the perspective that I try to bring to the discussion as we go through here, and hope to share some lessons learned with everybody. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Harris. Marcia, do you mind to say a quick hello?
Hello, everyone. Marcia Edwards, diversity recruitment specialist. I forgot what I do here. Diversity recruitment specialist at Mayo Clinic. I sit in Phoenix, Arizona. Our focus is, of course, increasing our veterans population, and of course, 50 Strong has been a huge help, helping us with navigating even, how do we even start? And because when we started talking about this program, there were so many ways of getting it started, it became overwhelming, and we almost gave up until I met Candy, and she's been absolutely amazing. And just being part of 50 Strong has helped us really focus on how we want to move forward. And now, as I will share, we're ready to launch later this year and next year. So thank you for having us.
Thank you, Marcia. Mike Piper from Lowe's. How are you, Mike?
Hey, I'm good. So I'm Mike Piper. I run our military enterprise strategy here at Lowe's, as well as have the great privilege as of a few weeks ago to take over all of our supply chain hiring as well here at Lowe's. So quite a different portfolio. But we've been in the SkillBridge game now, I'll say, since April of last year was when we were approved. And started our program up really around November of last year, and have since grown it and are rapidly growing it as we go forward and trying to both meet our customers, right? Our hiring manager and our candidates that are coming out of the military in a very unique way to allow them to participate and kind of bridge the gap between the military to the civilian world.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hey, good afternoon. Hey, Matt Disher. First, I have to apologize for the very casual nature of my appearance, as I am on a family vacation in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, and I was just on the beach a half an hour ago. So I wanted to maximize my time down there. And if you haven't been here, the water is clear and the beach is like, the sand is like powdered sugar. So I lead the military talent programs for Cushman & Wakefield, and we are global commercial real estate services. We've been involved with SkillBridge. We did our MOU with SkillBridge in the end of Q3 of last year in 2020. Didn't really implement a SkillBridge intern until the beginning of December of 2020. And so we are fairly new to this, less than a year as well. And as we go through this conversation today, I'd love to field questions about hesitations. I've coached a handful of other companies on how to approach these programs as well. We jumped in feet first. We didn't delay, even to the point that I have added a new team member. She's on this call today. Jamie McCall will be specifically overseeing our SkillBridge efforts as we invest further in these. So I look forward to this conversation today and answering any questions or giving you any other insight that we can. Thanks.
Thank you for being here, Matt. So I have on purpose asked our employer partners to introduce themselves first. They are on the front lines. They're the ones catching that football. We used a football analogy last week at a meeting some of us were in, and the jobs providers for the folks coming out of the military. So it's critical that we hear directly from them, both their wins and opportunities, right? But there's two really important other people on the call here with us today. Mentors to me, experts in the SkillBridge space. And so Liz, how are you? Would you mind to introduce yourself? You're on mute, Liz.
There we go. I'm on mute. I do enough of these. I should know how to do that, right? Thank you for having me, Candy. And I will say this forum for me is critically important too. I love to hear back from the employers. I've been in the room with many of the folks on here. Matt, I certainly want to just say we forgive you for your attire. I think we all work so hard that anytime we can dip our toe in the sand or the beach is a good thing. So we're all a little jealous, but really happy for you because we know how hard you work. Independently, I've been in this space for a very long time. Was there when they wrote this SkillBridge language, and started my work early on with the Teamsters and with the Army, quite frankly. You know, it was at a time where the unemployment numbers were at their highest in 2010. We had to figure out a way to get to unemployed veterans, not service members at the time. and we really came up with creative resources to do so and continue to do that. This forum, Candy, is so important as we are actively, watching this program grow, learning more from employers every single day. I take back all of the value that I get from these forums and platforms from you, the employers. Matt said something really important that I do want to stress is that just jump in. I mean, you're always going to learn something when you get into new programming, but if you jump in, folks like Candy, myself, and the team here, this team right here on this call, will always be there to lift you up and to help you navigate it. So don't be afraid to jump right in, but also don't be afraid to ask questions. It's a small child in the eyes of a government program. I say that a lot, and I mean it. And we're all going to be learning things. I think with this new administration, we're going to see some new tools and resources that are already happening, that we know are already happening, but engaging with employers who are really the most valued partner in this space to make sure that that service member's pathway is essentially a good pathway, that they land on their feet, that they're contributing in the economy, and all of the efforts that you as employers put forth are really critical to that, to those end results. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I look forward to hearing from the employers, and I always look forward to Candy from hearing from your employers that are participating in this. So thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, Liz.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, Chris Thorne. How are you, Chris?
Doing great, Candy. Thanks. Wow, just, every time I look around this panel, I'm thinking, what an amazing group of individuals here. It's a privilege to be here. So great to meet all of you. I'm glad you've all joined us today. My name is Chris Thorne. I'm a Navy veteran myself. I've spent a little over the last 3 years directly involved in the SkillBridge space on the industry engagement side of SkillBridge, helping companies create opportunity. I spent about 2 years helping one of the third-party providers, which, we'll talk about what that looks like, helping build and scale that out, and moved away from that. And I now own and run my own HR consulting firm. I am a SHRM senior certified professional. I happen to live in California, work nationally, but live in California. And I also happen to be SHRM California HR law certified. So as we get into the conversation about some of the application, I'm happy to help answer questions that might go directly into usability and feasibility in California, because as we all say, if you can do it in California, you can do it anywhere. And so that's certainly a great conversation to have. And I would also add, Chris Thorne Consulting, that I am proud to own and operate, is also providing, for all of you who happen to be SHRM certified, 3 PDCs for this one. Even though the conversation is around 1 hour, we're doing 3 because the intent, just as Liz and Matt and everyone else has said, this is intended to be the start of the conversation, not the completion of the conversation. And we're hopeful that every one of you as employers will continue that conversation with those on this panel as you learn more. And that's why we really put that out there. We want this to be an extension for where you're going next.
Chris, thank you so much. And I will just mention, Chris recently gave testimony before Congress. I'll actually I'll go try to find the link and put it in. I highly recommend that you just check out the few minutes that he spent giving some really clear policy updates and ideas specifically related to SkillBridge. Okay, so a couple of things on housekeeping. I have 2 more slides to show you, and then I'm going to turn the slides off. I really want this to be as interactive and open dialogue as possible with our panelists. So a couple of things. For those of you that are joining us, please use the chat box to connect with other people. If you want to send messages just to the speakers, please use the Q&A box. I want to share with everybody here today, this event is predominantly for employers that are interested in SkillBridge. I also am a big fan of helping service members and veterans get as much exposure to industry as possible. And so I think that we also have some active duty service members here with us today listening in, trying to understand the industry side of SkillBridge. If you are a service member and you are joining us today to try to learn the industry side of SkillBridge, I applaud you for being proactive. Again, this is primarily for employers, but these are exactly the types of ways that you will learn and connect. If you are a service member and you're joining us, please feel free to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat box. tell us a little bit about yourself. We have a bunch of employers that are here with us today. So again, for those of you that are here with us representing employers, we also have a lot of university partners here. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, please use the chat box to connect, and please use the Q&A to send messages that maybe you'd like follow up or something that's specifically addressed as we're talking. All right. So as Marcia mentioned, I have 2 slides that I want to show you about the different ways that employers can predominantly participate in SkillBridge. I will share with you that my background is 20 years Fortune 500, and it took me almost 2.5 years to get to this one slide. And so I'm sharing it with you in the hopes that it may be of help for those of you that are navigating SkillBridge. There are 2 main ways that employers can participate. We're going to talk about a couple other things in a second, but there's 2 main ways. First is direct authorization by the DoD via an official MOU. This includes more than just getting authorization to run your program. This includes business alignment before you do the authorization. This includes candidate sourcing, candidate interviewing, facilitation for command approval paperwork that's needed, as well as the participation of the actual SkillBridge. When an employer goes to the DoD to stand up their own program, the expectation is that they are running their program. It's basically your program. All the employers that are here with us today have gone through this process to stand up their own program. The second main way is collaboration with another DoD authorized third-party SkillBridge provider. This can be a good way, especially for smaller businesses that may not have the resources to stand up their own program. It may be a good option for employers that want to stand up their own program, but may need to do a pilot to prove it out internally or to work out some of the kinks. But basically, it is the third party's SkillBridge program, which means they may have their own timing, their own personas, if you will, their own skill sets, their own regions that they focus on. So it's just really important to understand that there's a couple of key ways that folks can participate. Neither is right or wrong. Frankly, I think it depends on your business resources. But those are the 2 main ways. I will also point out some services and some installations may do direct relationships for SkillBridge. So as you're navigating, just keep that in mind. Does anybody want to jump in with any ideas on that are of my panelists? Anybody want to jump in?
So I'll go ahead and start, and I know there's lots of conversation. It can become very, very confusing as an employer as you initially start looking at the opportunities out there for how to engage with SkillBridge. It can seem almost overwhelming to try and digest and discern. That's why I'm really glad Candy is doing this. The one thing that I would offer is that even though it may look daunting, it may look overwhelming to try and understand this at first, it actually can be a fairly simple process once you get engaged, whether you do it direct, whether you do it through a third-party provider partner. It really can be a simple. So I would just start by encouraging everyone, don't get overwhelmed and sort of say, oh, this is just too much for me to manage. We all know that everyone's already got full plates out there. We're going to help you get to success on this. And I promise you, it's easier than it looks.
Yeah. And, you know, to that point, Chris, I shared a slide earlier talking about the number of new programs. I think we're up something like 750% in new programs in the last year alone. So I'm just showing you some examples of organizations that have gone directly to the DoD. A couple that aren't on here that I'd love to call out. There's a lot of smaller businesses that have been added just recently. University of Chicago was added just recently. Clemson University was added just recently. A couple of folks on here that I think may be in the process. So to Chris's point, this is really an important point for you to be aware of. However, I do want to call out, here's some examples here of DoD authorized third-party SkillBridge providers. Again, the route that you choose is based on what works for your business ultimately. The goal is that everybody finds success. Okay, so this is my last slide, and then I'm going to turn off the screen share. I often get questions about how do I go to the DoD to seek my own authorization to stand up a DoD authorized SkillBridge program. So I'll drop this URL in the chat box, but I've tried to kind of bucket out. Here's the really important steps. There are 5. First, the DoD SkillBridge office works with an organization called Solid. Lisa, I think you're on the call right now. But Solid has done a really good job of getting as much information on the DoD SkillBridge website as possible to help you get started. So there's a new section called Get Started for industry partners. Please read through all that. It will definitely save you time. And then when you're ready to start your application, you click How to Participate. This is going to initiate all the next steps. Then there's going to be an MOU. If you've looked at the preview of the MOU, and you should, it's in the Get Started section, and you've done some alignment on the business side, this questionnaire is relatively straightforward. And then there's an MOU. It's a boilerplate MOU. I think it's probably less than 6 or 7 pages fully, that you'll want to have your company take a look at, and then you'll complete the location template. So I do not want to speak on behalf of how long this process takes, but I might, based on what I'm seeing. I'm generally seeing between 2 and 4 months, give or take, based on how long the office or how much is in the queue. So again, I'm not speaking for the DoD SkillBridge office. I'm just sharing with you a little bit about what I'm seeing across many employers. Okay, so I am going to stop the screen share. What I'd like to do is I'd like to just turn over the floor to any of the partners that are here with us today. My hope is that Mike, Matt, Harris, and Marcia, you guys can just share a little bit about your programs, areas you're focusing on, and maybe some things you've learned. Liz and Chris, please jump in with things that you think are important to highlight, as well as context. So I'll stop. Who would like, Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot, Mike Piper.
I had a feeling that was coming. It usually does. Yeah, I mean, our program, you know, Lowe's is a large company, is what I'll say. And for even just the start of our program, I love what Matt said. Just jump in. Just jump in, because it's seriously what I did. It was very much so. I've joked with some of my counterparts and said I basically put a dartboard at the end of a 50-meter hallway, turned off the lights, and just threw and see what I could do and how it would happen and where we kind of landed. But that was still with some strategy. So we focus on really 2 key areas for us, plus a third one that we're currently building out. But that is our stores. We need really good leaders. And frankly, if you boil down retail and you boil down the military, there's 2 things you do between both, and that's move boxes and lead people. It's really easy. We move boxes in retail, we lead people in retail, same thing in the military. You're always moving, you're always leading. So we built out a program specifically around assistant store managers, built a 12-week program, used a lot of the training that we already had built in for new hires, and really built that out to kind of help to add a little extra time for that transition. And then we also did that with supply chain operations supervisor roles. And then we're currently working towards a technology opportunity. We have a new technology fellow actually starting on Monday. He'll be a first one in. He'll be helping us to figure out the technology, what we have issues wise as far as access. And I highly recommend that. That's what we've done, is we've started small and then we've scaled up. We start with one, and I say, hey, and I even tell the candidate, you're going to be our first one. Like you're first one going into this. I need your feedback the entire way. We stay connected. My very first DoD SkillBridge I actually brought onto my team, so that way I could watch it closely on that and say, hey, look, okay, where is the issues with access? Also got to learn all about his process and how he was doing all the paperwork, and got to see it all and got to see everything that he had to go through and communicate with. So now I had a complete understanding. So through that, I could probably write a book on the amount of learnings that I learned during that amount of time, because it's quite a bit, and I'm sure everybody here will second that. But for the most part, you just got to start, and you got to start somewhere. And I always say start small and then ramp up. I mean, we started small, and we're still small. I still, and we're not to where we want to be. I mean, yes, we're welcoming 7 new SkillBridges on Monday, but like, still need more. I still want more. I want to be able to open this up completely. I want to open it up to meet our consumer, which is our hiring managers and our service members that are transitioning out. Like, where do I meet you? Right time, right place. And we have a pretty cool opportunity, just like some of the other companies here, where we're all across the United States, to help service members bridge the gap, and go back home or go wherever they want to go, while still being able to not have to deal with the worries of unemployment and coming out and not having a job when's the next paycheck come along. So great opportunity. I'll pause and let some of my fellows jump in here and kind of provide some of their feedback too.
Hey, Mike, you mentioned something about hiring managers.
Mm-hmm.
Can we collectively talk a little bit about relationships between folks that are leading SkillBridge programs and hiring managers, and what that means on the back end? Anybody?
I mean, I'll say right now, I spend more time in workforce development than I do in recruiting candidates, because I'm trying to make sure that we have a valid opportunity for them at the end. So I spend way more time in workforce development than I do in actually recruiting.
Chris, would you like to?
You saw my eyebrows going. I absolutely love that. A successful program, the relationship between your program manager and your advocate in the organization, your hiring managers who are creating direct opportunities, is so essential out there. If you are not directly correlating an open or future open requisition to an individual that you're bringing in with the intent of pipelining to that, then you're probably going to miss the mark on all of this. And I will share for our employers out there, if you have or do not have a veteran background, understanding, recognizing that these transitioning service members who are participating are approaching their end of active duty service, whether that's retirement or not. That means they're approaching a date where the paycheck, the benefits, the healthcare, all those things are shutting off. And so they're in a mode of seeking that next secured opportunity for employment that they know is going to take care of themselves and their families. And if you as an employer using SkillBridge have brought individuals on board for a SkillBridge opportunity, and you are not immediately engaging in figuring out how they fit into your organization and working on the conversation of let's get you converted. You can start conversion opportunity conversations on day one. You do not have to wait to the end. So if you don't start that conversation right away on day one, let's talk about your conversion, your hiring, your onboarding. I will share with you, they're going to get nervous and they're going to be looking for a paycheck. And while they're in your SkillBridge program, they're going to be talking to your competitors about job opportunities. And that's not where you want to be. You're giving them the training. You want to keep them in-house. And so where we see failure sometimes is just employers not understanding how early they could or should be engaging in that hiring conversion and pipelining to a specific intended requisition that you have for fill in your organization. So I would share that as a key metric for success for you.
Chris, I'll kind of piggyback there a little bit on that. I certainly, these programs, if not properly overwatched, can turn into, oh, I can get some free labor here. And that's not what, we as the leaders of these programs need to do. Our focus is the conversion component of it. And it's a supply and demand game. So we have to find the catcher's mitts for all of these individuals that are coming through that fit into our program. We're very transparent with our individuals about pay of the role that they may be learning and training in and what it looks like on the back end, to make sure that it's a good fit for them, as well as the company. So, I think transparency in all of this and making sure that from day one, when you're talking to those hiring managers, they all understand that there is an expectation. It's like any other internship program out there. Because by the way, I also tell them, if you want to continue having people come to ADP or, any of these programs, they need to know that people are getting jobs, or else they'll just kind of stop coming to you. So.
Yeah, so this is Liz. I want to reiterate too, it's kind of like a new marriage, going from military to civilian life. You got to carry them over the threshold and make sure that you're navigating that appropriately. And that's both for your team as well as for that transitioning service member. The big picture is, early on when this program started, it was really, and still is, command authority to release that person. A good point being said too, as well, as this is not free labor. This is not access to service members. This is really critical that you do your part and you do it well, and you engage your entire team to do so. So where you may be that hiring, or you may have a hiring agent or a recruiting agent for military and service members and veterans, you need to engage the rest of your team. If one side of the team is not, responding when you have a new candidate coming in, it can be the break in the chain at some level. So you got to be really careful with that. Make sure you're engaging everybody on your team. And Candy, I want to go back a little bit to the SkillBridge space.
Yes.
Independently, we talked a little bit about Solid, and Solid's team is administrating some really great tools based on the feedback from the existing employers. So your voices are heard as you're navigating through. Even if you just jump in and you go through that Q&A that SkillBridge has provided on their website, their teams are also behind the scenes helping and providing information back to employers. I think a lot of us, especially the folks here on this call, felt like we were kind of in the water by ourselves on our own little rafts, where that's changing quite a bit. And that's inclusive to the administration and the administrative tools that SkillBridge has based on some of the tools that Solid is doing. So I know there's a lot of people behind those tools ready to catch you too. If you have questions, if you go in and you don't understand that application, just by inquiring, you will get a response back, and somebody that from that team will be there. So I think we all say jump in, because there is a lot more tools. This has not been easy for a lot of the folks that are on the call right now, because these tools, this platform, quite frankly, was not there. So I encourage you to go in. Even if you just leave this call today and that's the first thing you do, go to the website, look at the Q&A. If you have some questions, come back to Candy. She can release it to the panel, to Solid's team, and we'll be happy to walk you through it. I think those tools are the things that we really need to be paying attention to. If you're not following the guidance from the directive of the DoD and what they're asking of you as employers, not only will you fail, but you will fail that service member going through your program. And that is the thing that is going to be the determining factor on whether commanders are willing to continue to release service members, and it's going to be the change in the growth of your own industry. There's a lot of great tools here that will help you fill in the gaps, those supply and demand gaps that you guys have talked about, without following the protocol and getting the support that you need from others within your company, as well as those outside that really know how to navigate it. We don't want to see you fail. We want to see you succeed.
And I think, Liz, that's a great point. And, I think, again, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Your team is doing awesome work. One of the things that you mentioned, Liz, that I'm hoping Matt Disher can jump in on. Matt, can we talk a little bit about business alignment as a starting point, and the importance of tracking and always being mindful to the business reality of, frankly, what SkillBridge is doing for your organization?
Yeah, so I think we can start here, and I apologize. I'm taking mental notes through all of these different topics, because there are so many different, I see the questions that are popping up in the chat as well, and I think we have a lot of things to cover here. I'll start here. The way that we approached this was, if you look at our business, Cushman & Wakefield, and let me back up for a second. I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I have led military programs in a handful of different companies through my career. It's been a blessing that I've been able to do this for a living for most of my post-military career at a few different businesses. And all of those companies encountered the same thing. They looked at military programs as though these were nice to have items. They were, let's go out and wave the flag and let's hire some military and hire some veterans. And that's great. But what you have to get to is the point that this is a business imperative. This isn't a nice to have, it's a must have. If you look at the military, which we all know, you're not on this call if you didn't already know this, the military trains some of the most educated, experienced, worldly knowledged, diverse people you're getting all the things your business is asking for, and they are essentially wearing the uniform, and they are fenced into these military bases, so to speak. So it's not like you're just doing a scattergun approach. You're going out there and saying, hey, I know where I need people. I can come out and market to this population. And so in our industry, it's commercial real estate. We are not Lowe's. You can't come buy a lawnmower from us. The only way that you're going to know about Cushman & Wakefield is you stumble across one of our job openings, or maybe you're particularly interested in doing real estate investing, or you work inside of a military or government building that is managed by Cushman & Wakefield, for example. So one of the weaknesses we had in this population trying to recruit from the military is that people don't know who we are. And so what we decided in doing the MOU with the DoD SkillBridge program is we're going to open up virtually any job that we have that we're aiming to fill inside of the company. So we're going to open these up to DoD SkillBridge, which means if you are a candidate and you're like, hey, you know what, I have 4 years in the military, I can't command the COO salary, but I could command the property administrator salary, which is an entry or junior level property management type of job. That very well could take that person like, hey, I need to be in Tampa. I'm going to go to Tampa. And so what we have done is, or what we continue to do, this is why I say when we jumped right in, we didn't do the MOU or sit on the MOU for 6 or 8 or 10 months. We didn't do the MOU and then sit around and plan for 10 months like, hey, what program we're going to bring 10 people into in one place. What we did was, so far this year, we've had 15 SkillBridge interns come through the business. And these are people that have been in maintenance and engineering. They've been in property management. They've been in learning and development. They've been in, literally, they're representative of all of the jobs that we have open anyway. These are jobs that we're filling one way or the other. So the alignment, Candy, really has been that we have candidates coming in, pouring in. I mean, that's the other beauty. The other beauty of this program is we had so many candidates coming to us and so many opportunities in the business that it allowed me, and I'll talk about this later on in this call, it allowed us to justify some cost savings. We talk about this is not a free talent program. It's not at all. But there is a representative cost savings that you can come back to your company and your leadership when you're building the playbook, so to speak, and say, hey, this aims to save us a lot of dollars while getting the best talent in the world. So what we were able to do was justify the cost of adding additional headcount to this team. And we're going to continue to grow this thing out. But really what it does is it requires us to make these really strong relationships inside of the business. Telling a hiring manager who's been in a company for 10 years, hey, I've got a candidate coming out of the military and they are an artillery crewman and they want to come join your team as a property administrator and they have no property administration experience, but guess what? You get them for free for 6 months. That's a really lengthy sort of conversation. It's not just something you have over the phone real quick. You have to educate a little bit. So there's a lot more that goes into that, a lot more dedication or dedicated people that have to be in this conversation inside of your respective organizations. That goes for small businesses and large.
You know, Matt, I think too, I've seen that happen on the spectrum of employers too. I think Candy and I, we've had a lot of conversations about this where the employer not having a team member like Matt or any of these individuals really explaining it to them. You'll get people that'll walk away from an HR office and say, hey, we got free people coming from the Army. You know what I mean? That's not what this is. And if that's what you think it is, it's not. And quite frankly, it's really important to have that leadership. And again, Matt, to your and to everybody that we just had this conversation about really extending to your own team to make sure that you're getting it right is super, super important. So good point, Matt.
And you know, I'd love to follow up on that. Just a point I think many of us were discussing before this call. You need somebody who understands your industry and your organization. A veteran doing this is great, but you need somebody who understands your industry, your organization, 100%. How to interact with your hiring managers and your teams. We see in this space a lot of well-intentioned companies diving into the SkillBridge space and bringing in a SkillBridge intern into the company and then turning them into the SkillBridge manager for their organization out there. And while that's well-intentioned, it's not the way to go. You need somebody who has the relationships established inside the organization to be able to have the conversations and be able to weave that nexus between the hiring managers, between HR, between those decision makers, because there will be rocks in the way and your program manager needs to know how to lift those rocks so that things can move. So I encourage, you know, Matt, I love what you said, that this is not a free labor program, but there are obvious cost savings, cost offsets, and benefits involved in this while getting some of the best talent in the world. And it's worth making that investment in having somebody really, really strong to manage the program for you.
So
Yeah,
I feel
I'm
like
hopeful.
I feel like my neck is gonna, like, I'm gonna break my neck because
I keep saying
nodding.
that too, Marcia. I'm like,
I
she
just,
needs to let her speak. Yeah.
I because everything that you guys have mentioned, we have, I'm going to say, have dealt with. So I want to go back so far back to what we've been discussing, but I know we don't have time. We need like 2 hours, but I'm just going to touch base on what Chris just mentioned. And that is absolutely truth. You have to know. So I work under the umbrella of workforce development, and Michael was saying that I spend more time working, and thinking about, under the umbrella of workforce development, because for me it was, when I first heard what was the interest of our active duty military men and women, when I went to a job fair at Luke Air Force Base when we were still doing it in person, and time after time it was, do you have a SkillBridge program, available for supply chain? And I kept hearing this over and over and over. So that just lit this bulb in my head. When I went to my leadership, when I went and I said, I am interested, I want to know, I want Mayo to be interested in this, starting this program. And they said, well, we don't know. I said, let me go find those supervisors. And I went straight to supply chain. Why? Because I was leading the Yellow Ribbon Employee Resource Group as the chair. So I knew all the supervisors that, participated in that program. I knew that the supply chain director was a veteran. And so I knew that he would be willing and he wanted to hear about, and he knew about SkillBridge. Before I even thought about completing an MOU, I wanted to make sure that we had departments that were going to dedicate a job for specifically SkillBridge. And another healthcare facility individual reached out to me last week. She saw me on LinkedIn, and because we're healthcare, she reached out to me because she was stuck in HR. She couldn't get HR to think about and get around the fact that they needed to save requisition for SkillBridge. And so I explained to her how I went about. I went first, the whole thing, I went first to the supervisors and I said, I need to know that you're going to have a job, that there's a high probability, like a 300% probability that you will hire this individual. I don't want them to go through the program and then you say, well, good luck. And so I got that from supply chain, and then I moved on to the nursing department. So surgical services, nursing, LPN program. So it grew from there, because you got to know which department, which supervisor is really going to take advantage of not free labor, because that's the first thing I tell them is, really, really be serious about hiring a qualified individual, and especially one that's been, in the military. I have 2 kids in the military, and they behave, they're better behaved now than when I was, raising them by myself, because they went through, they've been in the military. Going back to, so they, I started overseeing this program here in Arizona. It was one of those things where I didn't know where to, until I met Candy, I was going through and listening to all sorts of different ways to do this. So in the meantime, they hired my colleague in Rochester, Minnesota. She's a veteran. So they said, well, she'll make things happen because she's a veteran and everybody wants to work with a veteran. Well, guess what? We had to join forces because she struggled in the area where I was already ahead of the game, because I had the recruitment background, I had the relationship building background, I had all those things. And so we joked, because she says, you're going to have more interest in your programs in Arizona because nobody wants to come to cold weather in Minnesota. But again, as Chris mentioned, it's, and Michael did too, it's, and I think Matt mentioned too, it's, you got to have those relationships built first, because that will really help you, have supervisors understand what it is that you're trying to build here. So thank you for letting me not break my neck, because I just kept nodding.
I'll just say this is really why. So for the service members that are on, I hope this is really helpful, because this is not about placing you into a program. This is about making sure that there's a good fit. Most employer-driven programs are going to interview you similarly to if you were going for a full-time job, because they want to make sure it's a good fit early. And oh, by the way, for those of us that run third-party SkillBridge programs, this is exactly the same type of conversation that we have with the employers that want to work with us. Do you have a full-time requisition? And will you at least guarantee an interview? And we hope that it turns into a full-time job. Employment is the goal. This is the goal, right? Not a guarantee, but this is the goal that we all want to be working toward. Harris, do you want to talk a little bit about, well, you tell me, Harris, what do you, based on what you've seen over the past year, watch outs, ERG collaboration, what are the things that you think are important?
I think of the things that we've talked about here, I took a little different approach where I kind of went half in, where I worked with Candy for the first part to actually just understand the program, the system, how it works. And that worked for me. I didn't have a big giant team to do this, and I think many on the line don't either. And after I understood it, then I felt comfortable enough to go to sign that MOA, because I was at least armed and dangerous with information that I didn't previously have. And we worked somebody through the system to what Mike had talked about. It's look, there's going to be bumps the first one coming through. And as long as they know that, and you work together to make it better for the next person and the person after that and the person after that, that's really what this is about. And, I think the other great thing is, all of us here on this that are here today, I wish I could bring every person that's a SkillBridge candidate to ADP, but I can't. And I think all of us know that. And so we're kind of all in this together. If I can't help you at ADP, great, go to Lowe's, go to Cushman. It's great, and so we're all here. I've seen a lot of comments like, how do I do this? How do I do that? I think any one of us is happy to kind of have a conversation if something that we said resonated with you. But everybody's in a different place. And I guess the only other thing I would say is I was very focused on specific jobs, whereas some people have talked about, I'm going to open up to everything, which is great. We chose a different approach where we went after very targeted jobs, and that they may not be for every single service member getting out. And so I spend a lot of time talking to service members up front to make sure that we are all in agreement, being very transparent. What's the pay? I want to make sure it's a good fit on both sides, so there's no surprises at conversion time.
So Harris, that's a really great point. When we think about where might be places to start. So Harris chose to start with two roles that were kind of what I'll call evergreen type of requisition roles that they hired often and ongoing. Because really what this does is it increases the likelihood that there's something on the back end. But Marcia, you guys are kind of doing that, right?
Yes, we are. Mm-hmm. In Rochester, Minnesota, and also here in Arizona. So we are focusing on the nursing and LPN programs in Rochester, Minnesota. And here in Arizona is surgical services. So surgical technologist, surgical sterile processing tech. And then of course in supply chain, there's two: clinical support service coordinator and the logistics specialist. So we, and especially those, because with the growth that we're going to be experiencing, or we are experiencing here in Arizona for the next 10 years, these are those jobs that they're constantly going to be hiring for. So the likelihood that we can hold on to, a couple of those positions for just SkillBridge was higher than if I just went for a specific high level position.
I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about training right now. Mike, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second too. The other area that I see employers being able to leverage is existing training programs that they may have already set up for their workforce needs. Mike?
Yeah.
Can you share?
I did this. So specifically, I did the same thing that Harris did. We looked at roles that we knew high volume roles that we always are looking for good leaders in, right? And to build the program, to some of the other points, is we actually used our own veteran data for our great purposes, like what's retention rate, what's promotion rate, like all of that stuff. When you're talking to start building the program was fantastic. But from a L&D perspective, we looked at it and we said, okay, well, let's just see what we have for already built for assistant store managers. And nonetheless, we must have had, I don't know, I have some lucky timing sometimes, I swear. But they were building out a new training program for ASMs in three different areas. And we had gotten connected just at the right time. So our SkillBridge, a normal associate that comes in as an ASM, spends about 6 weeks in one program doing their training for, say, merchandising assistant store manager, right? The SkillBridge program that we have actually allows them to learn all 3 varieties of assistant store managers during a 12-week program. Because once again, I'll pull that back to this is not free labor. And you don't have to do a full 6 months. If I put somebody in the store for 6 months, I get more out of that than the service member. And that's not the point of this program. So we only do 12 weeks. And we do 12 weeks on purpose because that is all beneficial to the service member. So they actually spend 12 weeks doing training. I can see my cell phone on a cell phone. They're not even on a computer. We have what we call zero devices, or PDTs. They walk around with them. You may see them in the stores. But all of our training is the same training that they use for general, but it's actually gamified. They're in the store. They're walking around. They're learning the different processes in place. They're helping customers. It's the same way with our supply chain aspects. We have a very, I don't want to say military type training program, but it's a checklist. It's hour by hour. It's you're doing job shadowing, and it's week by week, and it's very detailed on purpose to make sure that there's full exposure. And we try to make sure that that exposure is usually greater, and all of them are currently, than what a normal individual that was coming in off the street into this role would have. Like, it's more exposure. It's trying to create hypos. It's creating individuals that can promote with us and be able to grow with the company and continue to grow in that leadership aspect. So from a learning perspective, L&D is like my best friend half the time. I'll say, if you don't have a friend that's in HR that's doing your learning development, you're not friends with them, you might want to become friends with them if you're trying a SkillBridge program, because it really does help to be able to use what's already existing, and it marks get really quick off, and you can move fast.
And Candy, if I may, that's such an important point there, because when we cut to the root of what the Department of Defense's intent of SkillBridge is to allow transitioning service members an opportunity to engage in a role that they can train to. So when you look at SkillBridge, it is, let's face it, from industry perspective, this is a talent acquisition pipeline. That is what we are seeing from there. Understanding that from the Department of Defense and service member side, this is an opportunity to engage transitioning service members into employment opportunities that they might not otherwise qualify if they were in a direct hire interviewing process out there. And so finding that sweet spot where you have somebody with the basic fundamental core capabilities, but then ensuring that you have developed a training program that really is now accelerating them to be that superstar that you're really looking for onboarding. That's key. And I'm so glad that Mike's doing that, because we see companies who look for that fully qualified direct hire opportunity out there using SkillBridge, and that's usually going to challenge the service member, challenge the company, and frustrate everyone involved. So it's creating and opening that door that's so essential.
So I want to also talk about the reality of SkillBridge. So let's say that you're a company on this call, you might be in the MOU process, and you might get from the DoD SkillBridge office your approved MOU. What next? Here's what I want everybody to hear. There is no easy button that the DoD is going to then start sending you candidates. So just like to Chris's point, DoD SkillBridge is a talent pipeline. You need to work for your talent pipelines. I'll put Matt on the spot a little bit, if I may. Cushman & Wakefield, frankly, I've been in Fortune 500 industry for a long time. I don't know if I could have articulated what they did until Matt and I started working together. I'm here to tell you that service members are asking left and right about Cushman & Wakefield. So Matt, I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about how you're getting all this interest.
So it's funny because when you were asking, you know, like what happens next? So you get the MOU signed and what happens next? So our process was maybe a month long, and I anticipated, I go back to this, I've been doing this type of work for much of my career, and there have been so many other programs that have come along. Candy, we talked about this last week. Chris, we talked about this last week when we were in Chicago together. So all these programs have come along over the course of years. And for those of you who have been in the military space, you know this. Lots of programs come and go. We hear about them, new shiny toy, then just disappears in a year, and nothing ever came of it. So I was anticipating, I'm going to do this MOU with SkillBridge. I'm sure that it's going to open up some pipelines to me. I did not have any expectation of the sheer number of people that I'd have coming and knocking on the door. And a couple of things that we've done, the ways that we've gotten there, Candy, to answer your question. One, we have a handful of major markets in our business in which we operate. Southern California, almost all of the major cities in Texas, Florida, the East Coast, anywhere and everywhere that there is commercial real estate, Cushman & Wakefield is. We manage or maintain some of the most iconic properties in America, the World Trade Center in New York City, the Patriot Stadium in New England. You know, these are our buildings that we do work in and on. And so when we take that to market and we talk about that a little bit bigger, a little bit further, you have candidates that, admittedly, people leaving the military in some cases don't know what jobs are out there until they know what jobs are out there. I was a combat engineer in the Marines. I thought I was going to be in law enforcement. I thought that was the only path I could take. I blew things up in shotguns, and now I have to go do the same type of thing out here in the civilian world. So the strategy really has been a couple of things for us. We open up those, we mentioned the word evergreen before, we open up those evergreen requisitions, we post those to the SkillBridge site as an authorized provider of SkillBridge. And I think that's where a lot of people come in. I also have jobs posted and sponsored to the job boards, to the Indeeds and things like that, that are SkillBridge specific. I see one of my partners with whom I do a lot of work, Maxine Graham's on the call. Through Maxine, I do a lot of targeted geofenced marketing. She's one of my resources there. We wrap digital fences around military bases, and we feed YouTube ads and browser ads into those military bases that are not always specific to SkillBridge, but they're specific to post-military careerism. So if the person wearing the uniform currently comes to Cushman & Wakefield and looks at our military career site, they're going to see that we're a SkillBridge provider. But I think, frankly, Candy, to answer the question, it has been involvement on calls like this. It has been public involvement. It's been basically raising that flag and waving it alongside of these other great companies that are on this call and some of the other ones that aren't on this call. We're all sort of showing up in the same places and sharing the same message over and over again. And that is, again, Cushman & Wakefield is not, we're not a retail organization. You cannot get packages delivered to your front door in 2 days from us. But what we do is we show up in all the places where all of these other organizations are showing up. And although in volume at this point, we're not huge in SkillBridge, we're doing well. The only reason we haven't been huge is because we simply didn't plug the resources in until this year. Like, we didn't realize how big it could be. And then again, the cost savings piece, which we can talk about at some point in time, it has really just been showing up in the right places and putting a little bit of money behind it and making sure that people in the military are aware of or people in the military community, that includes all of us here, are aware of these opportunities and what these mean and just how vast our industry is. So I hope I answered the question. It was kind of in a roundabout way.
On mute. Sorry. I think you hit it, right? I mean, the reality is you still have to be investing in these programs. You want results, you still have to be investing up front. All right, what else do you guys, listen, I scheduled this for an hour and a half. I told everybody I'd try to keep it to an hour. I'm flexible. What are the other questions that you guys think we should be talking about? Other points you want to make? For those of you that are listening in, if there's anything you want to drop in the chat or in the Q&A box, now's the time.
So real quick, if I may, Candy, there's some great questions in there. And I'd love to go back and just engage everyone on those questions. But one of the things that I think comes back to a few of those is understanding that SkillBridge is kind of, when you really put it together, a public-private venture partnership going on here. On the DoD side, there's rules, there's responsibilities, there's policy involved. And then on the the industry side, there's the hiring talent management pipeline that you have out there, and understanding that DoD has their requirements. You need to understand service policies. And unfortunately, there are some differences in service policies. The DoD policy is the writ large policy. I know there was a question earlier on, I believe, from Jeff regarding the period. So I'll just say right out there, DoD SkillBridge is approved for 180 days. Individual services, installations, and commands may set restrictive policies beneath and below that can be a little different. But you have to understand the DoD aspect to it as the provider that enables the program. But it's important that the service members that you're working with understand your industry requirements, because you are the activation of this program. And without industry activating the program, then there's nothing to it. So when you're working with service members, oftentimes they will be in the perception of only the DoD program requirements. Those are the only things that matter to them. So as an employer looking at that talent acquisition management pipeline, you have to express to them your industry side requirements on this. There was a question in there about service members who were interviewing for the program, and then days before final approval, they notified they were approved for another program. Service members, again, are going to work with the information that they're given. Active communication from your side on what the industry standards, industry requirements, and some learning, growing, teaching through the process become very important as that activation side.
And Chris, I think that can go both ways. I think sometimes the service member independently is so focused on the job and the tasks that they need to get there that they're forgetting about their own internal protocol within their services. And that's critically important to the success of them navigating to get to those programs. So it's really, you just have to be mindful. And I also want to mention too, Candy, we talk about the employer space on the SkillBridge website. There's also a space for the service members to navigate information, to get information. And if they're unsure, they should really go back to their own offices and get some direction from them. As you're trying to, and I see a lot of people from the services on this too, and some of the Q&A, which is really important, but we want to make sure that everybody has a space to land, right? Whether it's the service member going into it, that you get good direction, but make sure it's the accurate information, and going to the source, going to the SkillBridge site, or going to your own services, going to that industry representative, the MATs or whoever it might be, in those industries. Those are the sources you should be going to. A lot of outside chatter will cause problems, and there's enough resources available now that you can do that. So just try to work through some of that too. So many good points, might I add. I think that from your employer's perspective, I'm a girl that loves a good pilot program, right? And I work a lot with the bigger union programs, the training and apprenticeship programs. And we know that, just in those spaces, it's industry within industry. So you really got to pick and choose at some level, what's the platform of a pilot? And then for the smaller employers, one of the things that I would encourage you to do, if you're not getting a lot of traction from your own folks in your own space, your HR or your companies are saying, I don't know if we should do this, do a small pilot program. Do 2 in 1 year. Do 10 in 1 year. You know what I mean? You don't have to commit to doing 100 service members. You just have to have a plan in place to train them and to place them at some level, and to have those mentors along for the ride with them. But I don't think you need to go all in at any given time. I love Matt's perspective that anybody coming in, assessing them and where they want to be within that scope of jobs that are available in those industries, but that's not going to be the case with everybody. And I think some of the pilot programs, as Marcia said, the pilot programs at some level, they'll engage one region if you're a national corporation or institution, and then others will start to see that this is a benefit for everybody. And that's really how it started with some of the companies that I worked for. We did smaller pilot programs, and they just turned into advanced other programs. So it's great.
And, to that point, Elizabeth, David had just asked in chat about, he's right, obviously, ADP, Cushman, Wakefield, Mayo, Lowe's, great national organizations, large industries out there. And so he was asking about, what about those small business opportunities? And I would say, when you go onto the DoD SkillBridge website and you see the approved programs right now, almost 1,100 approved programs, greater than 75% of those are small businesses, down to mom and pop level, who may create just one or two opportunities. And that's okay. That's wonderful, because from a service member perspective, that opportunity may be the exact one that gets them where they are going. So for small businesses, you absolutely can do it. Sometimes it might take that, that trial, like Elizabeth was just talking about. Hey, stick your toe in the water, take a sample, play in the sandbox, maybe use a third party as a partner to that, like Candy 50 Strong can help you. Harris mentioned, ADP, great, Fortune 100 company out here, and playing in that sandbox by using a third-party provider like Candy and 50 Strong help them understand better what it
or
means
any
to
other
them.
one,
Or
right?
any other.
Any
Yeah,
other one.
I'm not pushing 50 Strong as the one. I'm just using the example.
Yeah. I think the key that I want people, especially small businesses, there is a path for every size of business. There really is. You may have to do a little bit of work to find out which is the right one. Fun fact, I have employers reach out all the time, and I'll refer them to another third-party provider that I think might be better suited, because I think it's the right thing for the workforce opportunity, which is therefore the right thing for the service member. There is a question in the Q&A that I want to mention. When I was in the SkillBridge program, I had support from the Veterans ERG, who provided great mentorship. Can anyone in the panel describe how they're leveraging this resource? So I think, Marcia, you talked a little bit about that. Mike, Matt and Harris, I am a big fan of leveraging the ERG directly tied to recruiting efforts. Can we talk about ERG collaboration?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so right away, before before I even started thinking about completing an MOU or anything like that, I did reach out to via a meeting when we were doing Zoom meetings last year. We still are, but to these members of our veteran Yellow Ribbon Veteran ERG, and my thought was, because I've been at Mayo 21 years, I've experienced from day one the culture change. So just for someone that is not in the military, so anyone that comes into Mayo, especially being after being a service member or women for so many years, there's a culture at Mayo Clinic that you kind of have to get used to and navigate through. So my first thought was, why not, partner, provide mentorship, for these SkillBridge individuals, so they can have someone that they can work with, talk with, get resources from, become a buddy, per se. So that's what we're going to be focusing on as soon as we start bringing in, members onto campus for these jobs that we're promoting, that we're looking to fill. Through the SkillBridge program, we're going to be introducing them to our ERG and basically assign or have volunteers as mentors for these individuals throughout the program, and then even after they're hired.
So mine, we do some different things, right? But what I'll say is, we talked about learning development and then being my best friend. My learning development came from the veteran BRG here at Lowe's. Like, that was me taking it to our BRG and saying, hey, I'm interested in this program. And somebody goes, well, I'm building a new learning and development platform. You want to use that? Like, it was just like super, because they're made up from across the business. So if you get them involved, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find your little hidden egg that you've been looking for, that person, that champion that you're looking for on the other side. And for kind of back to Liz's point, I mean, our pilot, we didn't have the BRG involved with that. We didn't do anything. We did the pilot. We tried to make sure data, we make sure access. Now they're involved. They're there in the first week, and they're meeting them, and they're networking, and they're talking, and then the friendships start to come, and then there's that buddy system that starts to go. So get them involved. It helps a lot from an experience perspective. Set things up. Like, I come when I started here at Lowe's, I was college internship program. So I ran our IT college internship program. Military was supposed to be 25% of my job. Obviously, that has not happened since. But we did a lot with that, from executive like experiences, meeting people, doing things with the BRGs, and making sure that the candidates and the individuals that were in that program were able to interact with different areas of the business. And I do the same thing still to date with our SkillBridge as much as we can with that, with also making sure that they're being able to train too. So for instance, our EVP of stores is a Marine, former Marine. He talks to almost all of our SkillBridge programs. He's set up to talk with them in September, and they get to meet somebody and learn how they went from being a hourly associate in the department supervisor role all the way up to running store operations for a Fortune 30 company. And yes, there is no such thing as a former Marine. Yes, for the record, he will make sure, he tells me that all the time, and I'm well aware. I knew that was coming. But get people involved, get your other veterans involved. That's how you're going to get success. If you really want to pilot it, find a veteran that has a role that they're about ready to open, tell them about the program, and watch what happens, because you might as well just get out of the way.
Yep. All of our supervisors for the programs that for the roles that I mentioned are the supervisors are all veterans from Air Force, Marine, Army. Of course, when we meet, they all argue about who's the best, but we'll leave it up to the good.
We all know who the best is, though, just so we're putting that out there.
Candy, I'm looking at the
we appreciate that, Matt. Navy all the way.
Looking at the questions here, and this question, I see that there's some of our panelists responding. If you wanted to bring someone on under this program for a position that requires certification to perform, are we allowed time to train them to gain the required certifications? That's kind of the whole point. And I see Matt responded and a few others. So there's one thing I think that really we get stuck in as folks that are following some of the employers, because there's a lot of layers of this, industry by industry, small companies, big companies. SkillBridge was originally written to be a training to placement effort, to fill the gaps of unemployment, which at the time was through the roof. It was unemployment compensation was probably paid out almost $1 billion in like a 3-year period. So that was really what the desire was, is to get some training, certification, credentialing that could bring those individuals that were in dire need of employment at the time, not into the veteran space where they were unemployed, but from service member to home having the job. It was really a desire to fill those gaps. Part of this is really, and I think we still get employers that are confused, and I want to clarify it. A lot of employers think, well, we have all these jobs and these job postings. You have to have a pathway. And that is a little bit confusing to some of the employers. And I think Marcia even mentioned early on, that's kind of what it was. I work with a lot of different industries, small mom and pop shops and larger companies. And that is where a little bit of the confusion is. This is not a place where you can post your jobs. It's certainly, there's avenues out there and landscapes out there that you can do that, but this is not that. You are really engaging the service member into your industry with that, whatever that job function is, inclusive to the license, the credential that goes along with that. Even though we're saying 180 days, there's not many programs that are out there doing 180 days. We try to dwindle it down as much as we can as industry folks, knowing that we don't want to take too much time away from their service, but we also want to give them the opportunity to get qualified for those industry jobs, whatever they might look like, and to get the job. Some of that training, the further training, will come when they get the job. So that's really what it was designed for. And I think that there's a lot of confusion sometimes with industry partners that this is a place to post jobs, and it's not that.
Can I change the subject for just a second? And the reason I'm going to ask for this is that my family summons me, and I have a ride in a golf cart coming to pick me up and take me back to the beach. But I do want to mention one thing, and I see that we've lost a handful of our participants here. I don't want to mention this before we lose any more. One of the conversations I have with a lot of companies I've advised on how to build military programs, but specifically around SkillBridge, has been around having a person or a dedicated resource, or people and dedicated resources. And I have spoken with at least one of them is represented on this call right now. I saw a name and they mentioned their company's name. And I sit in Cincinnati. And this company is also sitting in Cincinnati as well. And I've advised a few people that were trying to put some planning together. And one of my questions was, are you going to have a human being that is dedicated around SkillBridge? And their answer was no, we have not been able to justify the cost of that. And so this is a piece that we talk about quite a bit. This is not free labor.
No.
None of this is free labor. However, as I've mentioned a couple of times, there are cost savings initiatives that can be tallied up a little bit. And something that we started looking at in our business was, first of all, around veteran hiring. The work opportunity tax credit is one that I've known many companies aren't even looking at this. They're not even collecting this. So there are dollars available to you, and a lot of companies, it's fine. You're like, hey, I want the great talent from the military, so that's fine. You don't need the tax credits, or you don't want them. But if it comes to adding resources like budget and having marketing dollars and headcount to help you run these programs, sometimes it behooves to say, we have collected $1 million in tax credits this year, which justifies a $150,000 spend for something in this program. The other piece is that we've looked at is if we take the hourly rate of a person that we would otherwise have hired off the street and break that down into how many months we have a person on SkillBridge. Now, they're not just plugging in one day and going to work and doing the job, but I'll tell you, I have an engineman from the Navy, 10 years in the Navy. Engineman has HVAC background, has electrical background, right into a development with one of our New York teams, and was very quickly contributing to the everyday operation and mission while on SkillBridge. Still learning on the job, still working alongside of this engineering team. But this was a job that would be a six-figure job. Otherwise, we hired this person off the street. And he ended up, by the way, just accepting a position with us in the last 2 weeks, a full-time position after SkillBridge. But this was a number that we can tally up and say, well, if we did 10 of those this year, and by the way, I need to hire another person, or by the way, I need $300,000 in marketing dollars, or I need to buy some things. This is one of those pieces that I like to tell companies about. If you haven't considered this, there is a significant cost savings, again, to hire the best talent in the world. These are skilled people, they're educated people. You get everything you need out of them. You're just using this opportunity as up to 6 months to train them and get them familiarized with your industry or your business. And that does, in a lot of cases, some of these people are, as we all know, who've served in the military, these people are going to jump right in. And where there are opportunities to contribute to the business, they're doing it immediately while they're learning. So bear that in mind. It's one of those big conversations that companies are overlooking. If you need to justify the salary of a person to lead these programs, especially for larger businesses, that's the justification right there. With 5 people through SkillBridge, you're paying for yourself and your budget. So I'll stop there, and then I have to go to the beach.
Matt, before you run to the beach, and I hope you have a good time, but that is so important, because training and onboarding is going to happen for every employee you direct hire, no matter what. And if you're paying salary, if you're paying their wages during training and onboarding, and if you're able to do that as a wage offset by doing that during SkillBridge, that's real money. This is not free labor, but that wage offset to train and onboard during a SkillBridge program is real money. And I'll be honest, I often tell companies, if that is not enough justification for you to look at really committing somebody to this, then you're probably not serious about hiring them on the backside anyways. And so that's a good point to make a balance.
Matt, I would say run now, get in the golf cart, go. Thank you.
I appreciate everybody. See you. Hey, if anybody wants to connect, as a group or with me individually, please find me on LinkedIn, send me an email. I am always happy to have a conversation on the side, and we can always pull in the rest of the gang too and have a sidebar conversation. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate it. Tell your family we said hello. I think, unless anybody else has a pressing point that they want to make.
Candy, I just want to talk a little bit really quick about the tax credits, because Matt's right about that. I've been working with companies for 20 years, even before SkillBridge started, before the Vietnam era, there was tax credits available for people that hired veterans. And quite frankly, I think that's where it came out of. And a lot of the companies, like Matt said, that I talked to are like, oh, no, I'm not taking a tax credit for that. That's not right. I don't need to do a tax credit. And then the other thing is that it's a burden for HR offices to fill out that paperwork, right? But if you roll that back into what your investment is to putting a new hire in at some level, I don't know how much you guys have shared in the past or at any time about those tax credits, but they're available everywhere. And I really encourage people, if they're trying to offset costs, take a look at that, because I do think it's kind of an important factor that many people don't talk about.
Okay, so
I'm going to a whole other platform too.
Okay, I'm going to say this really quickly. 100% agree that employers should be looking at the full cost. I want to say this for clarity. Any employer that is thinking about a veteran hire, or SkillBridge, do not start with a WOTC credit as your starting point, right? That's not what any of us are saying. What we are saying is you're looking at the fuller picture. If that is a point within your fuller picture when it comes to the financial metrics, improving the business value of this program, fine. But the goal is not to bring somebody in so that you can get the credit.
You get tax credits. And that wasn't my suggestion.
I know.
That too.
I know.
But I will say, if you got to put a list together, and part of that list has to be inclusive too, that could be part of the list. And I
100% agree.
Get it. Yeah, just like it's not free labor, it's not so you get free money from the government to hire veterans.
100% agree.
Thank you.
100%.
So I'm going to throw one more pressing issue out there, and just hopefully as we close it up, and I love, and I know we are sort of dwindling down as we go. I love that we have service members on here as well as we have employers on here. One thing I would emphasize for everyone either side of the aisle is this is a dynamic space. You would not think a government program would be a dynamic space, but it is a dynamic space that rapidly changes, and sometimes across the various outlets and media, social medias, and other information platforms, there can be some misinformation around it, and not intentionally, maliciously. It's just that this is a dynamic program and process. And if you're not intimately engaged with it, it can be hard to keep up with some of it. So I do ask employer or service member, but specifically to our industry partners, really, don't get wrapped in some of the Facebooking around this conversation. You've got some great trusted partners, Liz, Candy, the employers who are on here with you today to lean out
DOD,
to, and
Army, Navy,
right,
Air Force.
absolutely.
There's a whole bunch of people that can answer your questions.
Absolutely. So please, I ask you, don't get wrapped up in some of the Facebooking of all of this. There are some great resources to really answer your questions authoritatively when you have them.
Amen. If you can't tell, for those of you that are listening, this is something that most of us on the call talk about often. So there's a lot of kind of hot buttons that we're all kind of tracking. I want to just say thank you so much to everybody for joining us. We will do these employer Q&A sessions at least every month. We will feature different SkillBridge providers. Next month, I may even bring in some of the smaller partners or maybe some of our education partners. But this is something we want to do because we want people to have the information. I would be remiss. The 50strong SkillBridgeConnect series is made possible thanks to the support of ADP, Cushman & Wakefield, Lowe's, and Amazon. These partners help me do all of this, so we really appreciate you. Chris, we're offering PDCs today through Chris Thorne Consulting. Is there something that people need to hear?
Just shoot me a connect either on email, cthorne at chris.thorne@cthorne Consulting, or shoot me. I put my LinkedIn in the chat. Send me a LinkedIn. I will send you a participation certificate with all the information that you need. So please, happy to do so.
Chris, if I can be helpful by doing that in the follow-up email, we can do that as well.
Totally, absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you're going to send a follow-up, I'll send you the certificate. You can shoot to everyone.
Even better. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, with that, again, I'd just like to say thank you all so much for joining. For those of you that are on that are DoD authorized SkillBridge providers, if you have interest in participating in our networking events, please reach out to me. And with that, we will say goodbye and thank you so much. Liz, Mike, Chris, Harris, Marcia, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Candy. Great form.
Thanks, Candy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Candy. Thanks, everyone.
Candy.
Bye-bye.